Ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining me on the next tour, can I ask you to have your cable car tickets ready? Steve, I'm going to be your guide on this tour this afternoon. But before we go down there and do the interesting bit, I've got the important bit to do up here, which is to let you know what we're doing. We're going to go through the hole in the wall down there. We're going to walk for a quarter of a mile through some old mining tunnels. We're going to get together in the Great Chamber, have a bit of a chit chat, watch a magic light show. Then you're going to climb 130 feet to come out on the top of the hill, quarter of a mile away up there. A round trip over half a mile. You're going to be underground for 25-30 minutes, thereabouts. However, there are some things you need to know. It's a cavern system. It's dark in places, it's wet in places, it's muddy in places. It is a cool 6 degrees down there. But there are 4 things you need to bear in mind before you follow me down. First of all, we've got floors which are steep, slippery and uneven. So wherever you see a handrail, put your hand on the handrail for me. That way if you slip or slide, you grab the handrail, it'll stop you going face over apex and getting a wet bum. Now, talking of the stairs, there are 175 of them. But before you start to panic, 16 of those go downwards, so there's only 159 going up, which is nothing really. They're in a section of 42, a section of 37, and a final section of 80 just to finish you off completely. Now, when we get to the Great Chamber, I'm going to put on my magic light show. My magic light show is done in the dark. It's got loud noises and flashing lights. So if you're standing here right now with a serious cardio issue, a serious breathing issue, if you've got a serious mobility issue, or if you're the type of person who gets wigged out by loud noises or flashing lights, this is not the place for you to be. In which case, my friend Sophie will let you out through the chain. You can go up the slope into the pointy building, and in there you'll find a cinema. And in the cinema, there is a companion tour to this tour, companion film to this tour that will tell you all about the underground world. Okay. Switch off the lights and flashes on your phones and your cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, good people, there you are standing 350 million years ago, the Earth was covered 9/10 in water. There was no life. And have you been standing right there 350 million years ago on the bottom of that bright blue sparkly sea, you'd have been surrounded by early carboniferous life forms, crinoids, wibbly wobbly half fish, half plant type creatures, brachiopods, small shellfish wiggling around on the bottom. You'd have been surrounded by trilobites, armoured sea lice, the forerunners of spiders and crabs, and massive outcrops of giant coral, and nothing else. There were no fish in the sea, there were no sharks in the sea, there were no dolphins, and no
Because
great
this
whales.
used to be the sea.
Now when the crinoids and the brachiopods and the trilobites died, their bodies just lay on the bottom. And because there was nothing in the sea, it's a crack in the crust of the earth. They're called rakes. This one is called the Great Rake. It's called the Great Rake because it's 6.5 miles long from end to end, and it's over 800 feet deep. Had you been standing there 17,000 years ago, you could have walked from one end of the Great Rake all the way to the other, while the volcanoes are pushing the limestone up and cracking open the crust of the earth. They're also forming great fissures, great cracks that run through the middle of the hill. These are called pipe veins. We're going to go down the pipe vein. We're going to go walk into the great chamber, where I'm going to carry on the story and tell you more about how the earth was made. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our point of no return, which basically means right now, if you don't want to do the 175 stairs and a half a mile hike, if it's too dark, too cold, or whatever, you can simply turn around and go back up the slope and return to the surface. Here is the thing. Once you come with me round the corner, you cannot later on turn around and come back out again. My friend Sophie is coming in with her tour, and there isn't room for people to pass side by side at the time. Okay? I'm just going to pop over the fence for my big class. 15,000 years ago. 15,000 years ago, climate change happened. Climate change isn't a new man-made thing. Climate change is a natural, cyclical thing. It happens every 10 to 35,000 years. The Earth will suddenly warm up, or she will suddenly cool down. 15,000 years ago, she suddenly...